Somewhere in Uganda, in 1985, a researcher named Richard Byrne watched a young baboon do something that should not have been possible. Her rival had stolen her food and beaten her badly. She had no way to get it back, so she stood up, looked around, and let out a scream. It was the exact scream a baboon makes when it is being attacked by a predator. There was no predator. There was no attack. She made it up. Every baboon in earshot scattered. Her rival dropped the food and ran with them, and in the chaos, she calmly walked over and ate the meal that was never hers to begin with. That baboon had no language, not a single word, and she had just pulled off a lie so precise it fooled an entire troop. By the end of this video, you are going to understand something that most people never think about. Lying did not start with words. It started long before that, in the minds of creatures who could not speak a sentence if their life depended on it. And once you see how it actually began, you will never look at a 2-year-old's tantrum or your own white lie at dinner last night the same way again. Let's start with what a lie actually requires, because it is not what you think. To lie, you do not need language. Language is just delivery system. What you actually need is something called theory of mind. That is the ability to understand that another creature has a mind of its own, separate from yours, with its own beliefs, and that those beliefs can be wrong. Once a creature understands that another mind can hold false information, it has discovered the single most powerful tool in nature. It can plant that false information on purpose. That is a lie. Stripped all the way down. No words required. Just one mind manipulating another mind's picture of reality.
And here is the part that should stop you. Researchers have found this exact skill in creatures that will never speak a single syllable in their entire lives. Take the fork-tailed Drongo, a bird in the Kalahari Desert. It has learned to mimic the alarm calls of over 40 other species. When it sees a meerkat carrying food, it does not attack. It simply screams a false predator warning. The meerkat drops the food and bolts for cover. The Drongo swoops down and takes the meal. No danger was ever there. The bird invented one on the spot because it understood something critical. It understood what the meerkat would believe, and it knew exactly how to exploit that belief. That is a bird lying with total precision, and it has never spoken a word in its life. So if birds can do it, and baboons can do it, the question becomes obvious. Where does this leave us? Because if deception does not need language, then something strange follows. Somewhere in our own evolutionary past, humans must have been lying long before we ever opened our mouths to speak a real word. And the proof for that is closer to home than you think. It is sitting in your own house, if you have kids. In 2010, researchers at McGill University ran a study on very young children, some barely old enough to talk in full sentences.
Do not peek at the toy.
Hidden cameras recorded everything. Most kids peeked within seconds. Then the researcher came back and asked one simple question. Did you peek? The astonishing part, not that they lied. Here is where it gets interesting. Almost every child said no. But the astonishing part was not that they lied. It was how early this ability showed up. Some of the children lying convincingly were only 2.5 years old. Children who could barely string together 5-word sentences were already capable of looking an adult in the eye and manufacturing a false version of events, on the spot, under pressure.
Psychologist Kang, who has spent decades studying this, found something even stranger. The children who lied earliest and best were not the troublemakers.
They were often the ones with the strongest cognitive development. Lying, it turns out, is not a moral failure showing up early.
It is a milestone. It means a child's brain has built the machinery to model another person's mind and manipulate it. That machinery is one of the most sophisticated things the human brain ever learns to do. And it shows up before phonics, before grammar, before most math.
So the lie comes before the language. But that raises a much bigger question, one that reaches back millions of years before any human child was born.
If deception is older than speech, what was it actually for? Why would evolution build a brain that lies before it builds a brain that talks? The answer has a name, and it belongs to a British anthropologist named Robin Dunbar.
Dunbar spent years studying primate brain size. He mapped it against their group size, and he found something that reshaped how we think about intelligence. Across primates, the bigger the social group an animal lives in, the bigger its brain, specifically the parts responsible for social reasoning. Not the parts for hunting, not the parts for tool use. The parts for tracking who is friends with who owes who a favor, and who might be lying to your face right now.
Dunbar's theory became known as the social brain hypothesis, and it argues something bold. Our massive human brains did not evolve primarily to solve physics problems or build spears. They evolved to solve each other.
To track alliances, to detect betrayal, to manage a constantly shifting web of trust in groups that kept getting larger and harder to monitor.
And once a group gets large enough, a very specific problem appears. You cannot personally verify what everyone in your tribe is doing all day. At some point, you simply have to trust them. Someone can slip away, do something selfish, come back, and simply tell a story about where they were. They get away with it completely. This created what researchers now call an evolutionary arms race. On one side, individuals evolved better and better skills at deception, so they could quietly take more resources, more mates, more status, without getting caught. On the other side, everyone else evolved better and better lie detection, so they would not keep getting fooled. Neither side could ever fully win, because the moment detection got better, deception had to get sharper to keep working, and the moment deception got sharper, detection had to catch up again. Primatologist Frans de Waal documented this arms race directly in chimpanzees.
He described a low-ranking male chimp who wanted to mate with a female while the dominant alpha male was nearby, which is normally forbidden and punished instantly.
The low-ranking male did something remarkable. He waited until a rock or tree blocked the alpha's direct line of sight, then acted on his intentions in that hidden angle, all while keeping a completely calm, neutral posture the rest of the time so nothing would look suspicious. De Waal called this tactical deception, and what makes it staggering is that the chimp had to be tracking three things at once. What he wanted to do, what the alpha could actually see, and how his own body language would be read if anyone noticed. That is not instinct, that is strategy.
This is the exact same cognitive muscle Kang found in 2-year-olds. The same muscle Burn found in a screaming baboon. The same one Dunbar mapped onto brain size itself. Managing what other minds believe and using that management to your advantage. Now here is the turn that changes everything.
If deception was already this advanced before language existed, then language may not have appeared to help us cooperate more smoothly, the way we like to imagine. It may have appeared, at least in part, to help us lie, and detect lies with far more precision than a scream or a posture ever could.
Language lets you do what a chimp's silent trick cannot. It allows us to share abstract thoughts.
Think about what language actually lets you do, that a chimp's silent trick cannot. You can fabricate an alibi about something that happened yesterday, somewhere else entirely, with zero physical evidence. You can promise something you have no intention of delivering. You can spread a story about a rival that damages their reputation without you lifting a finger against them. None of that is possible without words. Every one of those requires language, and every one of those is a form of deception running on a scale that gesture and body posture could never reach.
Some researchers, including linguist Jean-Louis Dessalles, have argued that this may be one of the real pressures that pushed language into existence in the first place. Not just naming objects, not just coordinating a hunt, managing reputation, catching liars, and outmaneuvering rivals inside an increasingly complicated social world. If that theory holds even partly true, it means something almost uncomfortable. Major signaling issue on the red line. The same mental sophistication that allows you to tell your boss a thoughtful, believable excuse for being late is not some modern character flaw.
It is the direct descendant of a survival skill that predates human speech itself, refined over millions of years in baboons, chimps, and toddlers who never even needed a sentence to pull it off. So we're back in Uganda, where one baboon screamed a false warning, watched the others panic, and quietly walked away with a meal she never earned. She had no words. She did not need any. She understood exactly what the minds around her would believe, and she bent that belief to get what she wanted.
I didn't touch the cookie jar.
Every time a 2-year-old insists, they are running that same ancient program.
Every time someone crafts the perfect excuse text message, they are using a slightly newer version of the exact same tool. Lying was never the broken piece of being human. It was one of the first signs that a mind had become powerful enough to imagine what was happening inside another mind entirely, and then quietly rewrite it. We did not learn to lie after we learned to talk. We learned to talk, at least in part, because we had already learned to lie.
So maybe it's time we stopped calling it lying and started calling it what Dunbar, Waal, and Kang basically proved it to be: social intelligence with bad PR.
Which leaves one delicious question hanging in the air. If every white lie is really a tiny performance of genius, how many Oscars have you quietly won this week?